everyone, I am Carla theBubblelush, and after I conceived Hannah, one of my biggest regrets is that I didn't make a vlog that encompassed and summarized my trying to conceive / infertility treatment experience. So now that Chris and I are trying to conceive number 2, what I want to do, just to kind of head off any questions, is go back and summarize what we went through in order to conceive Hannah, and also discuss some of the health concerns that we have, because I think you need to know both of those things and kind of in order to understand where our head is at and why we approach things the way that we do. So what I want to do first is discuss the health concerns I have, because maybe you'll see a little bit of yourself in my story. And then what we'll do is I will summarize as quickly as possible the 11 cycles that it took to conceive Hannah, and then I will end with some closing arguments, I guess. Also, probably what I'm going to do is in the future when someone asks me a question about my infertility journey with Hannah, what I'm going to do is I'm going to send them the link to this video. So if that is why you are here today, I want you just to know that I'm not brushing you off, that I've really tried to do a detailed account of my previous experience, and I think that your question and probably some other questions that you might have but you just don't know it yet will be answered in this video better than I could answer in a paragraph. So please don't think I'm trying to brush you off. I'm not. And also I just saw I took Hannah to Gymboree, so she is taking a nap right now. Hopefully I can get this done real quick. So the health concerns that we have. First of all, I was diagnosed with PCOS, which is polycystic ovarian syndrome. If you are unfamiliar with it, it is an endocrine disorder that affects your hormone levels, and basically it messes with the development of the egg, and because of that it doesn't mature at the right rate, your body doesn't get the signal to ovulate, and your menstrual cycles are just weird, and it's all because your hormones are screwed up. So it leads to a lot of anovulatory cycles, and if you're not growing a follicle and you're not ovulating a follicle, then you are not going to be able to naturally conceive that cycle. So once we were diagnosed with PCOS, we immediately sought fertility assistance. Also, another health concern that we have is one of my very close family members has a history of premature ovarian failure, and she basically went through menopause before the age of 30. So I always have to think, I just turned 28, and we want to have a large family, so we're not waiting around at all, just in case I have a similar, I guess, health issue later in life. Then also, during the 3rd trimester with Hannah, I asked the midwives to run a blood test based on just kind of a rumor that I heard through the family tree, and it turned out that I was diagnosed with being heterozygous for factor V clotting disorder, and that puts me at a much higher risk for miscarriage, stillbirth, pulmonary embolism, and stroke. So that is also kind of scary. And last but not least, I had an emergency C-section with Hannah after a 3-day-long failed induction, during which I developed a very serious infection of my amniotic fluid, and I started running a fever that was really high, and it wasn't responding to any medicine, and because of that, Hannah's heart rate started going really low, and it truly was, a 2 in the morning emergency C-section. Hannah was in the NICU, and I was very closely monitored in recovery because they didn't tell us at the time, but I had lost a lot of blood during the C-section and shortly thereafter, and because of my clotting disorder, it was really kind of touch and go for a little bit. So, but they didn't tell us that for a lot longer because they didn't want to concern us. Chris was in the NICU with Hannah, and I still had an extremely high fever, and so I didn't need to know. But my delivery with her was not easy. So that's kind of what we're working with. I've PCOS. I have a family history of premature ovarian failure by the age of 30, and I'm 28. I'm heterozygous for factor V clotting disorder, which puts me at a higher risk for miscarriage and stillbirth, especially during, and clots myself, like pulmonary embolism and a stroke, which is especially high during pregnancy and shortly thereafter. And I also had an emergency C-section with Hannah, so now I'm looking at a VBAC. So, not your ideal situation. So now I want to really quickly talk about my, I guess, infertility treatments and journey. I'm going to try to wrap it up real quick. So, all right, Chris and I got back from our honeymoon. That day, I was on the Nuva ring. I took it out. And just a side note, because of the clotting disorder, I should never have been on birth control. So if you know that you have factor V clotting disorder, please do not be on the majority of birth controls out there on the market. They are very dangerous to you. When they say, you know, it puts you in increased risk for blood clots, that they're talking to you. Okay. So I stopped birth control the day that we got back from our honeymoon. We started trying to conceive. Cycle 1 was extremely long. It was like 60 days. And once cycle 2 hit like 50-day mark, I called my doctor. I had a doctor way back in college. It was an internist. He ran a bunch of tests, and he just kind of off the cuff mentioned that I might have PCOS. And I was like, okay, that explains why I have crazy cycles, but I don't really care to have a cycle every month. I wasn't used to doing that. It wasn't my normal thing, so it's not like I wanted to be bleeding 1 week out of the month. So it wasn't a big concern. I was like, fine. But now that I was trying to conceive, it kind of was in the back of my mind that I might actually have that. So I contacted my doctor during cycle 2 and got an appointment to come in to get some blood work. She gave me a Provera, which started a period, and we ran some blood work and an ultrasound, and during cycle 3 it came back that I had PCOS. So I called up, I did a lot of research. I found a reproductive endocrinologist in the area that specialized in PCOS and was with a very reputable fertility clinic, which is very, very important. I find a very reputable fertility clinic. And so cycle 3 and 4 were spent waiting to get that appointment because I had to wait 40 days to get in to see her. Then cycle 5, I started on Clomid. I did 50 milligrams, which is just 1 pill a day. That didn't work. Cycle 6, I did 100 milligrams, which is 2 pills a day. Didn't work. Cycle 7, I did 150 milligrams, which is 3 pills of Clomid a day. And I did develop a follicle. We were going to try to let me ovulate on my own, but after a couple days of them noticing that the follicle was a big enough size, I should have ovulated already, and I hadn't. They had me come in, do a trigger shot, and we did timed intercourse, but honestly, I think the egg just got a little old. So I wasn't really surprised when that cycle didn't work. What did surprise me is cycle 8, I tried again, 150 milligrams of Clomid, went in for a mid-cycle scan thinking that surely 150 milligrams was going to work again, and it didn't. There was nothing there. And honestly, that was probably the lowest point in my fertility journey because I was just crushed. I thought that I had finally found the golden key and this was going to work for me, and it didn't. So that was probably the lowest point. During that cycle, I found an acupuncturist in the area that was also a chiropractor, and I began seeing her. And I also had an HSG done, which is a hysterosalpingogram, and I have a video all about that. Just search in my TTC videos if you're interested. So cycle 9, she was wanting me to do injections, but I had read a story that said that Femera was more successful with women that were Clomid resistant, and I was basically Clomid resistant. So I was like, can we try Femera once? And she was like, well, sure. So I did 7.5 milligrams of Femera, and wouldn't you know it, I produced a fabulous looking follicle. Knowing my history of having an issue with actually ovulating, we went ahead and did a trigger shot, and we did an IUI. I should also mention that initial meeting with the reproductive endocrinologist way back at like cycle 4, my husband did a semen analysis. His sample was absolutely perfect. We have no issues with male factor infertility, and I think that that's something that you really need to rule out because if you have any issues with male factor infertility, your treatments are going to be different than if you don't. even though we don't have any issues with male factor infertility, it was so hard to get me to grow a follicle and to ovulate. And I was, by this point, I was on my 5th medicated cycle, and that's kind of a lot. So we wanted to make it as easy as possible, and my insurance covered it, so we went ahead and did an IUI using, obviously, my husband's sample. So that didn't work. We did the same thing, cycle 10, 7.5 milligrams of Femara. We did a trigger shot, we did an IUI, it didn't work. Cycle 11, this is my 7th medicated cycle, my 3rd cycle of Femara, my 4th trigger shot, my 3rd IUI, it finally works. So, 3rd time's a charm, I guess. And I conceived Hannah. That cycle started on Thanksgiving. I found out I was pregnant Christmas Eve. If you haven't seen that video already, go see it. It's really, really good. I'll put a link down below. So that is the summary of my TTC medicated cycles to get Hannah. So now what I want to do, since this is kind of all the, I guess, gory details, I talked about my health issues, I talked about my previous medicated cycles and fertility treatments, and so now what I want to do is I'm going to stop this video and I'm going to make a video all about my postpartum cycles with PCOS, because I think a lot of people are really interested in that, but I just wanted this to be a video talking about my history and kind of where I'm coming from. So if you have any questions, leave them down below, and I will definitely do a Q&A video answering as many questions of yours as I can. So thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for the next one. Bye, guys.